I lay on the hospital bed, the sterile lights above blurring into halos as the nurse adjusted my fore. My hands trembled, not from fear of surgery but from the weight of what it meant. In just a few minutes, they would roll me into the operating room, and I would give my son Michael a piece of my body, my kidney, to save his life. At 79 years old, I didn't think twice about the risks. What mother wouldn't lay down everything for her child? I'd already buried a husband, I wasn't about to bury a son too. The monitors beeped steadily, marking time as if counting down not just to surgery but to destiny. My grandson, Ethan, sat stiffly in the corner chair. 21 years old, tall, with my late husband's piercing blue eyes, he looked pale and agitated, his fingers drumming nervously against his knee. "Grandma," he whispered, leaning forward, "you can't do this. You have to listen to me first." I frowned. "Ethan, not now. Your father needs me. They're prepping him already." He shook his head, panic flashing in his eyes. "That's just it. He doesn't need you, at least, not the way you think. Grandma, Dad's been lying. There's something you don't know." My stomach tightened. In all my years, Ethan had never spoken against his father. He idolized Michael. What could possibly justify saying this seconds before my surgery? "Tell me," I said sharply, my voice steadier than my racing heart. Ethan glanced toward the door, then back at me. His voice dropped to a hoarse whisper. "Dad's not dying. He's lying about the kidney failure. He doesn't need your organ. He needs your signature." The room seemed to tilt. "What?" Ethan pulled a folded sheet of paper from his pocket and thrust it into my hand. My fingers shook as I unfolded it. It wasn't a medical chart, it was a contract. My name was typed at the bottom line. Above it, legal jargon spelled out the transfer of my home, my savings, my remaining assets. All of it. My breath caught. "What is this?" Ethan's eyes glistened. "He forged the medical records, Grandma. He's in debt. Deep. If you signed this, or if you went under today, he'd control everything. The surgery is just a cover. They'd sedate you, and you'd wake up with nothing, not even your home." The monitor beside me beeped faster, picking up my pounding heart. "No," I whispered. Michael wouldn't, but even as I spoke, memories resurfaced. The expensive car he suddenly bought last year, the shady men who visited our doorstep when he thought I wasn't looking, the nights he came to me with vague excuses and desperate pleas for money. My son. My only son. Could he really do this? Before I could process, the door opened. Michael himself stepped in, dressed in his hospital gown, for trailing behind him. He looked weaker than I remembered, his face pale, his eyes tired. He forced a smile. "Mom," he said softly, "they'll take us in soon. Are you ready?" I shoved the contract under the blanket, my mind racing. Ethan stood abruptly, his body tense. "Dad," he said flatly, "tell her the truth." Michael blinked. "What truth?" "That you're not sick," Ethan spat. "That you're scamming her for her inheritance." The air froze. Michael's smile faltered for just a second, then returned, tighter this time. He let out a low chuckle. "Ethan, this isn't the time for your wild stories." But I had seen it. That flicker of fear in his eyes. I sat up straighter, my voice cutting through the room. "Michael, look at me. Is it true?" His face hardened, the mask slipping. For the first time, I saw not the son I raised but a man cornered by his own lies. "Mom," he said, his voice low and edged, "I need this. You wouldn't understand. The debts, they're suffocating me. If I don't pay them, they'll come after me, after Ethan. This way, at least we survive." My chest ached as if someone had reached in and crushed my heart. I had raised him better than this. Sacrificed everything so he could have a future. And this was what he had become, a man willing to sell his own mother's body for money. Ethan's voice broke the silence, raw and furious. "You're not saving us, Dad. You're selling her. And you'll lose both of us if you go through with this." The door opened again, nurses appeared, ready to wheel us to surgery. Michael forced another smile, but this time it was cold, mechanical. "Mom, don't listen to him. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Please. Trust me." I looked at Ethan, then at Michael. 2 generations of my family, one pleading for trust, the other for truth. My heart split in two. But as the gurney began to roll, I knew one thing with icy certainty: nothing would ever be the same. And for the first time in 79 years, I wasn't sure who I could trust in my own bloodline. The nurses' cheerful voices blurred together as they wheeled me down the hallway. Their words were meant to soothe, but I couldn't hear them. My ears rang with Michael's cold admission, with Ethan's desperate plea. He doesn't need your kidney. He needs everything else. My grip tightened around the folded contract I'd hidden beneath the blanket. Every beat of my heart screamed at me to get out. Stop, I croaked, my voice breaking. The nurses glanced at each other, surprised. I said stop. This time I banged my palm against the rail of the gurney. My old body may have been weak, but my voice carried the weight of a mother betrayed. The gurney jolted to a halt. I need a minute, I said, glaring at Michael. Alone. Michael's jaw clenched. Mom, don't do this. We don't have time. We'll make time, I cut in sharply, sharper than I'd spoken to him in decades. Out. Now. The nurses hesitated, unsure, but Michael finally raised his hands in mock surrender and stepped back into the hall. Ethan stayed glued to my side, his fists clenched. I turned to the nurses. Please. I need to speak to my family before I sign anything. They exchanged glances, then reluctantly wheeled me into a small consultation room nearby and left us there. As soon as the door shut, I let out a shuddering breath. My hands shook as I pulled the contract from beneath the blanket and thrust it toward Ethan. Show me. Ethan opened it on the table. The words blurred through my tears, but the message was undeniable: a transfer of property, accounts, and insurance policies, all signed over to Michael in the event of my incapacitation. Incapacitation. Not death. The realization slammed into me. The surgery was the perfect cover. While I was unconscious, he would have every legal right to my life's work. I pressed a trembling hand to my mouth. My God, it's true. Ethan's eyes filled with tears, his voice breaking. I didn't want to believe it either, Grandma. But I saw him meeting with men in dark cars. I followed him once. He went into a back room of a bar, stayed for hours. When I confronted him, he said it was business. I checked the records. He owes hundreds of thousands. They're threatening him. My mind reeled. Michael, my baby boy, drowning in debt, using me as his life raft. The door swung open suddenly. Michael stormed in, his face twisted in anger. What are you telling her, Ethan? I raised my hand, silencing him. My voice shook, but it carried steel. He showed me the papers. The contract. Is it true? Michael's eyes flicked to the table, then back to me. His jaw tightened. You don't understand, Mom. They're going to kill me. This is the only way out. By sacrificing your own mother? My voice cracked like glass. By taking everything I bled for? The house, the savings, the last of what your father left us. He slammed his palm against the table. I'm trying to protect us. No, I hissed, the fury of decades burning in my chest. You're protecting yourself. Ethan stepped between us, his voice trembling with rage. You'd sell Grandma's life just to keep yours. You disgust me. Michael's face reddened, his chest heaving. You think you know everything, Ethan? You don't. You're a boy. You have no idea what real men do to survive. But his words only confirmed what I already knew. Survival had become an excuse for betrayal. I stared at him for a long moment, seeing not the son I had raised but a stranger, a predator hiding in my child's skin. Then I made my choice. There will be no surgery, I said firmly. Michael's face went white. Mom, don't. I raised a shaking finger. You listen to me, Michael Carter. If you try to forge my signature, if you even think about taking what's mine, I will drag your lies into the light. You think these men are dangerous? You haven't met me yet. For the first time, I saw fear flicker in his eyes. Hours later, after I demanded the surgery be cancelled, Ethan and I sat in the quiet hospital cafeteria. My coffee had gone cold, untouched. Ethan leaned forward, voice low. They won't stop, Grandma. Dad owes too much. If he can't get your money, he'll try something else. And those men he owes, they won't just walk away. I rubbed my temples. So what do we do? Call the police. Ethan shook his head. Without proof, they'll say it's just debt. We need something stronger. I thought of the papers Michael had hidden, of the men in the shadows. Somewhere, there was evidence. Proof that he wasn't just desperate, he was complicit. And if we found it, I could protect not just myself, but Ethan too. That night, I returned home with Ethan. The house, once warm with memories, felt haunted now. I saw it with new eyes, the unopened letters stacked in Michael's study, the drawers he always kept locked, the faint smell of cigars lingering when he came home late. We searched carefully, quietly. In his desk, we found stacks of overdue bills, gambling slips, even threats scribbled on napkins. But in the bottom drawer, beneath a pile of receipts, Ethan found a black ledger. My heart pounded as we opened it. Names, numbers, payments. And in the margins, symbols I didn't recognize, codes, maybe, or initials. Ethan traced a finger along one line. This isn't just debt. He's working for them, helping them collect, maybe even launder money. I sank into the chair, my whole body trembling. Michael wasn't just a victim. He was part of it. The front door creaked open. Footsteps echoed in the hall. Ethan's eyes widened. It's him. Panic surged. We shoved the ledger back into the drawer just as Michael entered the study, his face pale, his shirt wrinkled, his eyes bloodshot. He froze when he saw us. What are you doing in here? His voice was sharp, dangerous. I rose slowly, gripping my cane. Looking for the son I raised. I don't see him anywhere. His jaw tightened. You shouldn't have come back. For the first time in my life, I saw violence in his eyes. And in that moment I knew, the battle for my family had only just begun. Michael's eyes were bloodshot, his shoulders hunched forward like a man carrying the weight of 1,000 stones. But the glint in his gaze wasn't desperation anymore, it was cornered fury. You shouldn't have touched my things, he said, his voice low, almost a growl. I kept my cane firm in hand, leaning on it only slightly, my body taut with anger. Ethan stood beside me, his fists clenched, his youth trembling against his father's shadow. You shouldn't have lied to me, I shot back. You dragged us into your filth. You nearly tricked me into handing over everything your father and I built. Michael's lips curled into a bitter smirk. You think you know what it's like? Those men don't play games, Mom. They'll bleed me dry if I don't give them what they want. And if I fail, they'll come after you. You, Ethan, everyone. You already let them in. Ethan snapped. His voice cracked with rage and heartbreak. You became them. Michael lunged forward, shoving the desk drawer shut with a violent slam. That ledger isn't yours to read. But the truth was already burned into my mind. The debts, the coded names, the dirty work. He wasn't just drowning, he was helping pull others under with him. For a moment, none of us moved. Then, a sound broke the silence. A car door slamming outside. Then another. Michael's face drained of color. They're here. My stomach dropped. I rushed to the window, careful to stay hidden behind the curtain. 2 black sedans had pulled into the driveway, headlights cutting through the night. Doors opened, and out stepped 3 men, broad-suited, their faces hard and cold. One carried a briefcase. Another lit a cigarette, its red glow stark in the dark. Michael's voice trembled now, stripped of its bravado. Stay quiet. Don't interfere. But I'd had enough of staying quiet. Ethan's whisper was frantic. Grandma, we have to leave. No, I said, steel in my voice. We have to see. The knock on the door wasn't polite. It rattled the frame. Michael swallowed hard, straightened his shirt, and went to open it. The men stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. Their leader, a tall man with slicked back hair and sharp gray eyes, scanned the room like he already owned it. His voice was smooth, calm, but it dripped with menace. Mr. Carter, he said. We've been patient. Too patient. Michael forced a smile that didn't reach his eyes. I'm working on it. I just need more time. The man's gaze slid past Michael, to me, standing in the hallway with my cane, and to Ethan hovering protectively at my side. His smile widened slightly. And who do we have here? Michael stepped quickly between us. Family. Nothing to do with this. The man tilted his head. Everything to do with this. Because when a man can't pay his debts, it's his family that pays the price. My blood ran cold. But I straightened my back and met his gaze, refusing to cower. You will not touch my grandson. For a heartbeat, the room was silent. Then the man chuckled softly. Spirited, isn't she? He turned back to Michael. Do you know what happens to men who waste my time? He snapped his fingers. One of his men set the briefcase on the table and opened it. Inside were stacks of cash, neat and tempting. But beside them lay a gun. Michael's breath hitched. You bring me the rest, the man said calmly, or next time, it won't be your money we take. His eyes flicked toward Ethan. I stepped forward, slamming my cane against the floor with a crack that echoed in the room. You'll get nothing from us. Michael spun toward me, panic blazing in his eyes. Mom, stop. But it was too late. I had challenged them. And in their world, challenges weren't ignored. The man's smile faded. He leaned closer to Michael, his voice dropping. You'd better keep your mother on a leash. Or we'll do it for you. With that, he snapped the briefcase shut and motioned for his men. They left as quickly as they came, the slam of the front door shaking the walls. Silence fell heavy in the house. Michael collapsed into a chair, burying his face in his hands. You don't know what you've done, he muttered. I stood tall, my cane steady, my rage simmering beneath my grief. What you've done is worse. You sold your soul, and you would have sold mine. Ethan knelt beside me, his voice low but resolute. Grandma, we can't wait for them to come back. We have to fight back. Expose them. Expose Dad. Michael's head shot up, his face twisted with desperation. Don't you dare. They'll kill us. I met his eyes. Then maybe you should have thought of that before dragging us into their pit. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the ledger Ethan had managed to copy on his phone before Michael slammed the drawer. Names, numbers, cryptic codes, enough to hint at something larger, something rotten. I realized then that survival wasn't enough. Running, hiding, it wouldn't stop them. If I wanted to save Ethan, to save what little dignity I had left, I had to turn the game around. I whispered to myself, voice steady despite the fear gnawing inside me, you wanted me weak. You wanted me silent. But you forget, I've lived long enough to know how to wait, how to watch, and how to strike. The first threads of a plan began to weave in my mind. The next morning, I told Ethan everything. We can't just go to the police, I explained. Not yet. They'll bury the evidence before it reaches the light. But if we can get proof, real proof, of what Michael's been doing with them, then we'll have leverage. Ethan frowned. Proof like what? I tapped the ledger page. Bank accounts. Transactions. Names that tie back to something solid. Michael stumbled into the kitchen, bleary-eyed, reeking of whiskey. His gaze darted between us. What are you planning? I held his stare. The truth. That's all. He laughed bitterly. The truth won't save you. These men own the truth. Then we'll steal it back, I said. Later that afternoon, Ethan and I followed Michael when he left the house. We stayed 2 cars behind as he drove to a rundown warehouse on the edge of town. He parked, glancing around nervously, then slipped inside. My pulse pounded as we crept closer, peering through a broken window. Inside, I saw men gathered around tables stacked with cash and documents. And Michael, standing among them, not as a victim, but as one of them. He handed over a thick envelope, shaking hands with the slick-haired leader. Laughter echoed off the concrete walls. Ethan's jaw clenched. He's not just in debt. He's working for them. I gripped his arm, my cane pressed to the ground for balance. My voice was steady, almost calm. Then we have everything we need. I pulled out my phone, recording every moment. Every handshake. Every exchange. The proof was ours. But as we turned to leave, the sharp sound of footsteps froze us. Going somewhere? A man stood behind us, broad and menacing, blocking the path. My blood turned to ice. Ethan tensed beside me. For a moment, I thought it was over, that we'd been caught, that all hope was lost. But then I tightened my grip on my cane, lifted my chin, and stared him straight in the eye. If they wanted to silence me, they'd learn the hard way. This grandmother wasn't done fighting. Not by a long shot. The man's shadow loomed over us, his broad shoulders blocking the narrow alley behind the warehouse. His voice was low, gravelly, each word weighed with menace. "You've been watching," he said. "That's a mistake." Ethan stepped in front of me instinctively, fists clenched, but I laid a hand on his shoulder. My cane pressed firmly against the cracked pavement as I stood straighter. "I've lived too long to be afraid of shadows," I said evenly. My voice didn't shake, though my heart pounded so loud I could feel it in my temples. The man smirked. "You've got fire, Grandma. Too bad it won't save you." He reached for his pocket, and for one terrible moment, I thought I was about to see the end of everything. But before he could pull whatever he carried, a door creaked open nearby. Michael stepped out, his eyes widening when he saw us caught in the alley. "Stop," he barked, rushing forward. "She's with me." The man froze, hand still hovering near his jacket. "With you?" Michael's face was pale, sweat beading on his brow. "She's my mother. And the boy is my son." For a moment, the man looked between us, suspicion hardening his features. Finally, he let out a dark chuckle. "Your family has guts, Carter. I'll give you that. But guts don't pay debts." He shoved past us, heading for his car. Michael grabbed my arm, his grip tight. "What the hell are you doing here?" I yanked free, my voice sharp. "Finding out the truth. And I have it now." Ethan held up his phone, the screen glowing with recorded video. Michael's eyes widened in panic. "You don't understand," he whispered harshly. "They'll kill us if that gets out." "Then maybe you should have thought of that before you sold your soul," I spat. That night, back at the house, Michael paced the living room like a caged animal. He kept running his hands through his hair, muttering curses under his breath. Ethan and I sat on the couch, the weight of everything pressing down on us. Finally, Michael stopped, staring at me with wild eyes. "Delete the video." "No," I said simply. He moved closer, towering over me, but I didn't flinch. "You think you can fight them? You think some grainy recording will save you? They'll bury us before it ever sees daylight." I leaned forward, resting both hands on my cane. "Then we don't hide it. We spread it. Everywhere. You wanted to play both sides, Michael? Fine. Now you'll watch me burn your masters down." Michael's mouth opened, then closed. For once, he had no answer. Ethan whispered, "Grandma, if we do this, they'll come after us." "They already are," I said. "The difference is, this time, we won't be crawling. We'll be striking." The first step was simple: build insurance. Ethan and I spent the next day copying the video to every device we could: USB drives, cloud storage, even an old external hard drive that hadn't been used since Henry was alive. Then I wrote a message: "If anything happens to me or my grandson, this goes to the police, the press, and everyone else who'll listen." Ethan helped me send it to trusted contacts, an old church friend, a cousin states away, even my lawyer. The message was clear: touch us, and the truth spreads like wildfire. Michael watched silently, his face pale, his hands trembling. He knew what it meant. He knew I had tipped the scales. But the Carver men weren't stupid. They realized someone had seen too much. It happened 3 nights later. I was sitting in my armchair, the folded ledger balanced on my lap, when headlights swept across the window. I froze. Seconds later, the sound of car doors slamming, footsteps crunching against gravel. Ethan rushed into the room, eyes wide. "They're here." Michael appeared too, his face drained. "Don't answer," he hissed. The knock on the door was like a gunshot, 3 sharp raps that shook the frame. "Mrs. Carter," a voice called, smooth and taunting. "We know you're in there. Let's talk." Ethan grabbed my arm. "Grandma, we should run out the back." But I'd had enough running. I rose slowly, leaning heavily on my cane, and moved to the door. My voice was steady. "No, Ethan. Tonight, I answer." I opened the door just enough to see the slick-haired leader from before. His smile was thin, humorless. "You're braver than most," he said. "But bravery without brains gets you killed. You have something that belongs to us." I tilted my head. "Funny. I thought it belonged to the truth. His smile vanished. Hand it over. I tightened my grip on the cane. You think an old woman doesn't know how to fight? You think I'll bend because you knock on my door? I've buried people scarier than you. For a moment, his face flickered with surprise. Then he laughed softly. You've got spirit, I'll give you that. But spirit won't stop us. He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. This ends one of two ways, you hand it over, or we bury your family. I met his gaze, my eyes unflinching. Then I guess you don't know me very well. I shut the door in his face. That night, sleep never came. Michael paced, Ethan sat by the window with a baseball bat, and I sat at the table, my mind spinning with possibilities. By dawn, I had my answer. I called Ethan to me. It's time, I said. Time for what? For war. The plan was dangerous. But I had lived nearly 8 decades, and I knew one thing, the power of exposure. Men like the Carver Group thrived in shadows. Drag them into the light, and they withered. I told Ethan what we'd do, deliver the evidence straight to the authorities, but not quietly. Loudly. Publicly. With no room for it to be buried. Ethan nodded slowly, his young face grim. And Dad? I looked at Michael, slumped in the corner, pale and broken. He has a choice. Stand with us, or fall with them. Michael lifted his head, his eyes haunted. You don't know what they'll do. No, I said, you don't know what I'll do. 2 days later, we drove to the courthouse. I wore my best navy cardigan, pearls gleaming at my ears, cane tapping against the marble floors as we entered. Ethan carried a folder thick with printed evidence, the video cued on a flash drive. Michael trailed behind, silent, his shoulders sagging. I marched into the district attorney's office, looked him square in the eye, and placed the evidence on his desk. Do your job, I said. The DA's eyes widened as he scanned the papers, the video. This could bring them down. That's the idea, I replied. But exposing them was only the beginning. Because as we left the courthouse, I saw them, 2 black sedans parked across the street, their tinted windows watching, waiting. Ethan tensed, gripping my arm. Michael muttered a curse under his breath. I straightened, my cane tapping firmly on the pavement as we walked past those cars. I didn't flinch. I didn't look away. Let them watch. Let them see. Because I wasn't afraid anymore. That night, as I sat in my armchair, the note from that fake doctor still tucked safely in my drawer, I realized how far I'd come. From a woman seconds away from giving her son her kidney, to a grandmother who refused to be silenced. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something stronger than fear. I felt power. When you are a mother, you learn to forgive. When you are a grandmother, you learn to endure. But when you have been betrayed by your own blood, you learn to fight. The courthouse steps echoed under my cane as Ethan steadied me. The morning sun painted everything gold, but to me it felt like a spotlight. 2 black sedans idled across the street, the Carver men watching, engines purring like predators waiting for weakness. I lifted my chin and walked past them. Slowly, deliberately, as though I was daring them to move. They didn't. They wouldn't. Not here. Not in front of the courthouse doors. Inside, the district attorney's office had already started building a case from the evidence Ethan and I delivered. The ledger, the video, the recorded exchanges, they had enough to sink the Carver Group's operations. But the DA had warned me, we'll need testimony. Someone to connect the dots in court. Without that, they'll claim forgery, fabrication, entrapment. They'll wiggle out. That someone was me. And whether he liked it or not, Michael. The night before the trial, the house felt like a ghost of itself. Michael sat at the kitchen table, hunched over, his face pale and lined, his eyes hollow. He had been drinking less these last days, as though sobering up for the gallows. You're going to put me on the stand, he said flatly. I didn't answer right away. I poured myself tea, the steam fogging my glasses. When I finally turned, my voice was steady. You put yourself there the moment you forged those records. The moment you tried to sell your own mother. His jaw tightened. I didn't want to hurt you. No, I said, tapping my cane against the floor, you wanted to save yourself. At any cost. Ethan sat in the corner, his arms crossed. He hadn't spoken to his father in days, his anger a quiet storm that simmered constantly. Michael finally whispered, "They'll kill me if I testify." I leaned closer, meeting his eyes. "They'll kill you if you don't." The day of the trial, the courtroom was packed. The Carver men sat at the defense table, suits sharp, smiles cold. Their leader, slick hair, gray eyes, rested his chin on steepled fingers, watching me like a cat watches a mouse. But I wasn't the mouse anymore. When the bailiff called my name, I walked to the witness stand. My cane tapped once, twice, 3 times. My hands trembled, but my voice did not. I told everything. From the moment I agreed to give Michael my kidney, to the note slipped by the investigator, to the night I found men in my house tearing apart my life. I held nothing back. The defense tried to rattle me. "Mrs. Carter, isn't it true you're an elderly woman prone to confusion?" I leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "I'm 79 years old. My eyesight may dim, but betrayal is something you see clearly at any age." The gallery murmured. Even the judge's lips twitched in something close to approval. Then it was Michael's turn. He shuffled to the stand, pale and sweating, his tie crooked. His voice wavered at first, but when pressed, he admitted the debts. The ledger. The meetings. His role as a collector. And then, in a voice so small it broke my heart, he admitted the rest. "Yes," he whispered. "I forged the records. I lied to my mother. I almost let them cut her open for nothing." Gasps rippled through the gallery. Ethan buried his face in his hands. I sat rigid, fighting tears. The Carver men shifted in their seats, their masks cracking for just a second. Their empire was crumbling, one confession at a time. But the trial wasn't the only battleground. That night, after court adjourned, Ethan and I returned home. Michael had been taken into protective custody. I sat in my armchair, firelight flickering across the note I still kept in my drawer. "Don't go home. Run." That note had saved my life. But survival wasn't enough. I called the DA. "It's time," I said. "Release the files. All of them. To the press." By morning, headlines blared, "Local family blows whistle on organized crime syndicate." My name was in every paper, every news station. Reporters swarmed the courthouse, their cameras flashing like lightning. The Carver men had thrived in the shadows. Now, dragged into the light, they shrank. Their allies turned on them, their money trails exposed, their power fractured. But justice had one final act. On the last day of trial, I addressed the court. I rose slowly, cane steady, and looked at the judge, the jury, and the predators who once thought me weak. "My son betrayed me," I began, my voice carrying. "He nearly stole everything I had left. But even that betrayal pales beside what this group has done to families across the city. They prey on fear. They feed on silence. And they thought I would stay silent too." I looked directly at the Carver leader, holding his gaze. "But I will not crawl. Not for them. Not for anyone. If I have to drag their crimes into every courtroom in this country, I will. Because they forgot something important. Grandmothers don't scare easy." The gallery erupted in applause before the judge could call for order. The verdict came swiftly, guilty on multiple counts. Sentences long enough to end their reign. When the gavel fell, I felt the weight of months lift from my chest. I turned to Ethan, who squeezed my hand, his eyes shining. "You did it, Grandma." "No," I corrected softly. "We did it." Michael was sentenced too, leniency for cooperation, but years behind bars awaited him. As the guards led him away, he glanced back at me. For the first time, I saw my son not as a monster, but as a broken man who chose the wrong path. My heart ached, but I didn't flinch. Because love without boundaries is not love, it's surrender. And I had surrendered enough. Weeks later, I sat once more in my armchair, firelight warm, the folded note in my hand. Ethan sat across from me, studying for his exams, his life ahead of him. I traced the faded ink of those 4 words. "Don't go home. Run." I smiled faintly. I didn't run. Not forever. I turned. I fought. And I won. Ethan looked up, his eyes full of pride. "You taught me, Grandma. Never let fear own you." I nodded. "And never let betrayal define you." I slipped the note back into the drawer. Not as a warning anymore, but as a reminder. A reminder that even when the world conspires against you, even when your own family betrays you, you can rise. Because sometimes the strongest revenge isn't vengeance at all. It's survival. And survival, on your own terms, is victory.